Heidi ho, hizzle, fighty, fo, fizzle. Welcome back to the show. My name is Sean Vizzle. I don't know what I'm doing. Welcome back to Trek on the Tube, and welcome back to yet another Star Trek review. Today we're talking about Star Trek Lower Decks Season 2, Episode 2, Kayshawn, His Eyes Open. As usual, first my thoughts and my opinions on the episode, then we'll dive into all of the Easter eggs and references to other things, other episodes of Star Trek and popular culture that we could find, and boy, were there a lot this time around. And yeah, that's it. Let's jump right in. Spoiler heavy, as usual. I won't be reminding you every time, but this time I did. Oh, and before we really jump in though, a big congratulations to you, my dear new subscriber, Jared Finkenbinder. Thank you so much for participating and subscribing to the channel. You are the Lower Decks Season 1 Blu-ray giveaway winner. Well done, you got lucky. First video you watch and you win the thing. Congrats, man. We'll get in contact as soon as possible. We'll send emails back and forth and trying to get this Blu-ray out to you as soon as we can. Alright, Episode 2. What did I think? Well, after getting the nasty taste of that terrible opening teaser out of my mouth, I came to enjoy this episode slightly more than the last. Is it the best Lower Decks has to offer? No, but it still remains a very strong outing that not only builds upon existing Star Trek canon, but also worked very well as its own self-contained story, and also it was a nice way of introducing a new character. Before we do get into all of that though, all of the positive that is, let's first talk about that opening teaser, just to get it out of the way. I didn't like it at all. Like, basically nothing worked for me. Yeah, I did appreciate the callback to the sonic showers, and I do like the fact that the scene itself starts setting up the power struggle of sorts between Mariner and Jet that the episode depicts later on, but that's about all I liked. Nothing else, like, it just didn't work for me on basically any level. It just annoyed me so much. So public mixed gender showers... Look, I'm not a fan of the lower deckers sleeping in the hallway in the first place. Like, I don't like that. But I gave it a pass last season because it has already been seen before in Star Trek. And I guess there's kind of a certain comedic aspect to it. Everyone bunking in the hallway. So I guess communal showers shouldn't bug me. But it does. And I know sports teams do this in real life today. Also, I know the show takes place in the future where species and genders are probably not as big a deal as they are today, but still, there's something about not allowing junior officers to have their privacy that just baffles me. The scene should have made sure to show that private sonic showers are available for those that are uncomfortable in this kind of situation. Instead, it reinforced the idea that you cannot do that and simply have to deal with it however you can. I mean, that's what they say about Boimler. Furthermore, why are all the showers controlled as one unit? Like, why doesn't every cubicle have its own control panel and its own buttons? Why is it a single person that's controlling all of the showers? That makes no sense. And I am to believe that there is a setting so high on the sonic showers that it can kill you, or at least severely injure you. That makes no sense. Seriously, granted it feels very 90s Star Trek, that someone would use this as a trap, like they would disable the safety protocols on the sonic showers and use the intensity of the heat or the intensity of the waves or whatever it is to injure or trap an enemy that's attacking the vessel. Fine, that feels very Voyager, but that would be a very specific scenario where someone's deactivating the safety protocols. Here, we're just expected to believe that, like, if you misclick the button or, I don't know, slip and turn the knob too much, you can die. It's ridiculous. It throws all logic completely out the window. And then, to top this all off, they have these Starfleet deltas on their towels, which is fine. I mean, it's become a big thing to put Starfleet deltas everywhere, but all 4 officers have folded and are wearing their towels in such a way that all the deltas are visible from the same angle facing the camera. Like, exactly. What? This show puts in so much attention to detail, visually speaking, and no one could be bothered to make the towels just a little less coincidental in this one scene. Like, I know it's ridiculous to complain about logos on a towel, but this show is so good at everything it does. I was legitimately shocked at how bizarrely executed every element of this opening was. I'm sorry. Okay, my rant is over. It's done. You are now angry and frustrated because you really like the episode and you really like that scene and you don't understand why I'm getting all pissy about it. But that's kind of the point. It's kind of something that's good because now you understand what I was living through when I watched the episode for the first time. The episode was good and it was good fun, but coming out of that opening scene that frustrated me and annoyed me so much, I had a very hard time taking everything in, that first time round. Following viewings, I was okay. Yeah, basically, I wasn't very receptive, I guess, to mainly the first act on that first viewing. My grumpiness affected me. Upon following watches, though, as I just said, I was fine. I could finally fully appreciate just how fun this little space adventure was. So let's put the past behind us and talk about that. For starters, bringing back the concept of the collectors and exploiting that trope to dump an excessive amount of Easter eggs on screen was brilliant, and also using the collectors' desire to protect what they've accumulated at all costs to create a booby-trapped environment for our beloved officers to escape was so clever. And then to in turn use that setting to both introduce our new chief of security and challenge Mariner's unique perspective on leadership in ways the group dynamic hasn't been able to do before was even more clever. Honestly, I think we as fans of the show can all say that we like Mariner, we think she's great, and we can all see the potential that she has at becoming like a very good Starfleet officer. And the creatives talk about that being her arc, and they talk about kind of that being what the character is and building towards that goal. And, there's a very clear character arc that's been set up, I think, by the show. It's just that sometimes, even if I know that her attitude, her disobedience, her recklessness, her emotionally overpowered decision-making are all purposefully placed kinks in the road on her path to becoming that Starfleet captain we all know that she can be and probably will become, it does get to be a little much. A little too in your face. And of course it doesn't help having Boimler around, because even if he has a different perspective on things, he's not as strong as Mariner, and ultimately, ends up following her most of the time. This Jet guy, however, he was great. They crafted him exactly how he needed to be in order to balance out the group dynamic and create a pseudo-power struggle between Mariner and him. Now, should that have happened in the first place? Debatable. Considering I'm convinced one of the two officers outranked the other, or at least one of them should have been the designated leader in case anything happened to the senior officer in the mission. That seems like a logical, standard practice, but, that's only a very small detail, easily forgiven considering the context and the added value to the plot, putting it aside gives us. It also enabled the episode to shine some light on Rutherford and Tendi by making them the ones to call the shots near the end of the mission. While we're talking about senior officers, let's mention our new guy, Kayshawn. I mean, damn, was he fun. He's no Shax yet, granted, but still, he's only been in one episode so far. He spent most of that episode as a puppet, and yet he still managed to make us, a feel for him. They still managed to make him grow on us. It's a success. I would seriously call that a strong first appearance. The only thing I fear is the Darmok and Jalad jokes. I don't know how long and how often they're going to be able to keep that up, and they'll have to think of some new expressions pretty quick, because the Next Generation bank has already run dry when it comes to those. Still, it was fun, and he is a welcome addition to the show. The puppet joke, by the way, it must be said, was probably simultaneously the cutest and most funnest way to incapacitate a Starfleet officer I have ever seen. And it's so specifically Lower Decks, too. See, this kind of stuff is brilliant, because on one hand it works within the greater context of Star Trek, stranger things have happened, but then bizarrely it would feel odd if it were to happen in The Next Generation, or Discovery, or something else. It works perfectly for Lower Decks, and that's something I look for in every Star Trek show. How do their stories, characters, and problems fit within the greater universe, but also can every show be unique enough to deliver things only they could ever do? Almost as if to contradict me though, Dr. Ta'ana says that this isn't her first puppet, like this shit happens in the future, or it happens to Starfleet officers, like, what the fuck? Before we move on to Boimler, Riker, and the Titan, I just wanted to end on the whole self-defending collection thing by pointing out that flying Roombas and the flying Roomba attack was pretty darn creative, and I'm all for that. So the Titan, the B-plot, which almost, but not quite, didn't feel like a B-plot, was super fun. At first, admittedly, it kind of freaked me out because Riker is, I mean, there's no other way to put it, running a ship full of douchebags. Like, everyone on the bridge celebrates and jumps around once they win a battle against the Packlids, and dear lord, is that not Starfleet? Hashtag, we are not Starfleet. Hashtag, we are douchebags. Relief, yes. Thankfulness, yes. Those make sense. But high-fiving and chest-bumping after a win and after potentially killing many people, even if they are enemies, I mean, that felt so wrong and so out of place. But it was done on purpose. Because as the story developed, we learned more about those characters and what drives, what motivates them. Which are very different reasons from what drives Boimler, for example, or even Riker, who in one scene reminisces about the peaceful scientific exploration of the galaxy aboard the Enterprise D. That was such a nice thing to include, by the way, and not just for the Easter egg aspect, it was just, I don't know, it was heartwarming to see Riker think about those days and know that he really likes them and appreciates them. I don't know, it works for me. I like it. Riker is still having a lot of fun on the Titan, though, clearly. I do think he's taking the job a little less seriously than when he was with Picard, probably because fighting the Packlids isn't nearly as terrifying or as intimidating as facing off with the Borg or dealing with the Q Continuum. Regardless, the episode absolutely nailed the conference room scene. The music, the camera angles, the general tone, Frakes' voice acting, everything was flawless. So much so, for a second there, until Boimler punctuates the whole scene with a joke, you kind of forget it's a sitcom. Without any transition whatsoever, because I can't be bothered to write one, the Packlids were amazing. Their dialogue was so well written and the voice acting was so effective.
We need to hit the door with a saw!
Boimler getting cloned was admittedly very unexpected, or at least on my part, I didn't see it coming, and yet very well executed. Yeah, it was played for the jokes, but somehow it didn't feel like something that just happened because it had to happen. It felt almost planned. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if Mike McMahon at some point pulls out some sort of like Thomas Riker, William Boimler, and Lore team up or something. I wouldn't be surprised. Final comments about the episode would probably have to be the corn pip joke was fun. It is a shame we didn't get to see Deanna. Using the Collectors and the Collectors Guild was a brilliant idea. All the voice acting was really, really, really good. I complained about Frakes and his voice acting in Season 1 or the Season 1 finale, but I have no complaints here. Everyone did an amazing job. Shout out to the Packlids. The music, as I said earlier, stood out a little more than in the previous episode, and as usual, it is beautifully animated. No complaints on that front. The only small complaint I really would have is the kinda dismissive, almost mean attitude that our four protagonists had towards Jet. I would have preferred him leaving more on his own volition than the way he was kicked out, I guess. Final word goes to Kayshawn. He's cool, I like him, and it's big that he's in Starfleet. Just by putting him in the show in that position expands his species' lore so much within canon, and I love it. I love him. Trek on the Tube, his arms open. Alright, good episode. Not Hall of Fame, but still very, very strong. I mean, it's not without its little issues, but, you know, good overall. 2 thumbs up. Actually, 3 thumbs ups. It gets a bonus one for having the Boimler being beamed while screaming joke that I loved so much in the trailer. It still worked so well here. And now it's time to move on to the Easter eggs and references part of the video. Starting with the sonic showers. First introduced in the motion picture, they mainly became a recurring thing in Voyager, although they were always private and in someone's quarters. Aboard the Cerritos, the ship's counselor, who probably has a name name, but I can't remember it. Seen for the first time in Season 1, is now sitting on the bridge next to the captain, exactly like how Troy did in The Next Generation. Also, as if to perpetuate tradition, he's not in uniform. Continuing on with the bridge crew, our new friend here, Kayshawn, is a Tamarian, or a child of Tama. If that species name means nothing to you, you might at least recognize him better when seeing another member of his species. Yes, it's the Darmok and Jalad at Tanagra people from the iconic Next Generation episode Darmok. In that episode, Picard struggles to communicate with the Tamarian captain, as their language structure is completely different from any encountered before by the Federation. Multiple times expressions used in that episode come back in this one. Also, there's a few parallels to point out between the Next Generation and Lower Decks when it comes to Kayshawn. First of all, both shows changed their security chief in Season 2, and though it was Shax who very much embodied the spirit of Worf's character, Kayshawn here, just like Worf, seems to have been allowed to wear a culturally meaningful decorative element across his chest and over the Starfleet uniform. We mentioned this earlier, but Jet cracks a joke about corn falling onto uniform collars, giving the impression that officers have different ranks at different times. Not only is it clearly a nod to Season 1 purposefully or not ever changing Shax's rank, but it's also a nod to this being a recurring issue within the franchise for decades at this point. Finally, this is a strip of gold-pressed latinum as seen on Deep Space Nine. Aboard the Titan, Riker asks the computer to play Nightbird, something he himself was working on with the trombone in The Next Generation. At one point, he is animated with his leg up on the furniture, which is a nod to Frakes' live-action performance as Riker. And in his ready room are both a Civil War cap with 102 on it and a model of an Oberth class ship. The cap belonged to, or is a replica of the cap that belonged to one of his ancestors, Thaddeus Riker. The Oberth class is probably the USS Pegasus from the episode The Pegasus from The Next Generation, a ship from Riker's past. Riker, Boimler, and the rest of the bridge crew all talk about why they joined Starfleet, what kind of missions and ship they enjoy. The first officer, I think, uses the famous Star Trek phrase to boldly go with a bit of a different meaning that troubled me, even if it is quite clever. Boimler talks specifically about things like string quartets and daycare centers when he's mentioning the Enterprise D, which are references to the Next Generation, as are the recountings of Riker's adventures, such as meeting his transporter clone and jamming on the trombone. Things do get pretty meta when Riker says that's a wrap. I can't help but feel like that's a shout out to his career in directing. Also, when Boimler says the Enterprise insurrected, that has to be a reference to Insurrection, you know, the movie. And Boimler not liking the action-packed, how does he put it?
It was a bunch of complex characters thrown into heavily serialized battles, which always ended in mind-blowing twists and made me question the basic tenets of my reality.
Yeah, that. Him not liking that and preferring calm, intriguing, peaceful, scientific-oriented missions seriously feels like a nod to the Star Trek fandom and their feelings, or maybe I'm just overthinking this. Thank you so much for... Oh no, you thought I was done! I'm not. The nightmare never ends. No, the very fun, very calming Easter egg hunt never ends, because now we have to talk about the collectors and the collection. Both collectors are references to Kivas Fajo, this brilliant motherfucker portrayed by a true genius in the art of acting. He was, to my knowledge, the first collector seen in Star Trek, although maybe Trelane was one, I don't remember. Anyway, Fajo appeared in The Next Generation, and yes, he did try to collect data. This guy that died is of the same species as him. He's also wearing the same kind of clothes, and he has the same protective force field thing on his belt. Zibalian, I think they called. This new collector claims to have a menagerie. That's probably a reference to the cage or the menagerie. Although a case could also be made for The Eye of the Beholder, an animated series with a similar premise. Also, the when the holographic defense mechanism activates is probably a reference to Jurassic Park. And now to start listing every single little object in the collector's collection. Actually, no, I'm gonna go over as many as I can in the form of bullet points. Some I found myself, others the internet helped me. Shout out to my Twitter peeps and various blogs and websites. The fact is, we're gonna try to do this as fast as possible, because if we don't and dive deep into every single one of them, we'll still be here next year. Alright, let's go. A mirrored replica of the painting that Picard painted in The Next Generation. Various Klingon, Vulcan, Andorian weapons. The Curiosity Mars rover. What seems to be a Monet. What seems to be an ancient Greco-Roman statue. The Catan probe from the famous Next Generation episode The Inner Light. A Cottiscot game as seen in Voyager. An old arcade game. One of Neelix's chef outfits. A drum kit. A trombone, probably a reference to Riker, but this is probably also just a trombone. What seems to be a torpedo case with a window. These things were often used as coffins in The Next Generation. The sword of Kalis, or at least a very similar looking bat'leth. A statue or taxidermized assault vampire from the original series and from Lower Decks. A Ferengi thought maker from The Next Generation. A Betazoid gift box. A Medusan protection / transportation box. A mirror universe Terran flag, another Monet, a Van Gogh, also Frederick Edwin Church's Niagara, apparently, the internet told me this. This is a Vulcan Kishara, or at least a replica, a better one than in Picard, by the way. A Jem'Hadar Ketracel white storage device from Deep Space Nine, a mirrored Logician baseball cap, also from Deep Space Nine. An original series era disaster recorder, kind of like a black box for ships. A baseball, probably not Cisco's, but sure as hell a nod to it, paired with a baseball bat. A bust of Picard made by one of the children aboard the Enterprise during The Next Generation, as well as the Qatarian game that turned out to be much more than a game. It's also a meme. Worf's bazooka, officially called an isomagnetic disintegrator. This is from everyone's favorite Next Generation movie, Insurrection. Yeah, that's the one where they insurrected. 2 crates of Chateau Picard wine dated 2386, considering this episode takes place in either 2380 or 2381. These things are probably fake or have been acquired by time traveling, and yet, with so much hard work put into getting these, they still have a spelling error on them. Goddamn. A pair of what seems to be 21st century Earth shoes, the Hotel Royale book from The Next Generation, an original series filter mask, something that everyone is saying is Data's poker visor, the Territon City from the animated series, a Trident scanner from the original series, a priceless artifact that Picard once showed off in The Next Generation, as well as an Anaran instrument seen in Voyager. An original series era uniform, what is probably a replica of the necklace Khan wore in The Wrath of Khan. Don't get me started on that necklace, because now shit's getting pretty insane. That necklace was destroyed with Khan on the ship when the ship was destroyed, so the necklace shouldn't be here. That's why I say it's a replica. But in the first place, Khan shouldn't even had that bloody necklace, because he was stranded on a planet where there were no Starfleet officers, no one, for years and years and years. I don't know how he got the necklace. Anyway, a painting, very similar in style to the one in Data's quarters. One of the masks from the Next Generation episode, Masks. A fidget spinner, a Nintendo Switch, the goddamn sex ghost candle from an episode of the Next Generation. You don't need to know about that or the candle. Data's painting of his cat Spot, E.T., or at least the remains of one of his species. What seems to be a Gorn, an animated series one no less, considering the shape. Spock 2, or Giant Spock, or the Spock clone, however the hell you want to put it, also from the animated series. Small side note, I'm not quite sure they nailed the dimensions here, if I'm honest. It could be a third, even bigger Spock, considering how huge this friggin' skull is, but I mean, probably not. Next, a Mugato from the original series, and this is an odd reference, but it's a somewhat creative recreation of a scene in an original series episode called The Savage Curtain. And that's probably not all of it, but that's enough. It's enough for the time being. I'm sure you and many others will find many other Easter eggs to point out. Happy hunting, everyone. That's all I got. A big thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, share, tell everyone I exist. A big thank you to all of the channel patrons. Again, a huge congrats to you, Jared Finkenbinder. And as usual, live long and prosper.